Good evening. Let your shoulders drop just a little. Wherever you are lying or resting, let the surface beneath you hold you completely. You do not have to do anything right now. You do not have to be anywhere. Tonight, we are going to think slowly about something that lives very close to the heart of most relationships. Something that most of us were never quite taught to talk about. Money and love, and how quietly, how deeply those two things are woven together. You do not need to stay awake for all of this. You do not need to take notes or remember anything in particular. These ideas are gentle ones. They will settle in the way that things settle while you rest. The way a room feels more yours after you have slept in it a few times. Just breathe. Let your eyes close if they have not already. We have nowhere to be and all the time in the world. We will go slowly. Here is the thing that most people discover, often in the middle of a difficult conversation, in a kitchen or a living room, with someone they love. Money in a relationship is not really about money. It is about something much older and much quieter. When your chest tightens because your partner spent more than you expected, that feeling is not truly about the number. It is about something closer to safety, or fairness, or whether you both feel like you are moving in the same direction. When you feel a quiet irritation about having to justify a purchase, that is not really about the purchase. It is about freedom. It is about trust. It is about whether you feel respected as a capable adult who is allowed to make their own choices. Money between two people is a kind of language. And like all languages, what is said on the surface is rarely the whole of what is being communicated. Think of two people sitting at a kitchen table in the early weeks of their life together. One of them grew up in a house where money was always uncertain, where the end of every month felt like holding your breath, where there was never quite enough cushion to feel entirely safe. The other grew up in a house where money was simply there, comfortable and unexamined, present the way air is present, noticed only in its absence. These two people have very different nervous systems around money, not because one of them is careless and the other is sensible, not because one of them is anxious and the other is calm by nature, simply because they learned different things in different rooms before they even had words for what they were learning. When those two people sit down to talk about a shared budget, they are not really talking about numbers. They are talking through the entire weight of everything they each carry. The first person may feel genuine distress when the account balance drops below a certain point. Even when things are fine, even when there is no real danger present. The second person may not understand that distress, may say something too offhand, and without any intention of causing harm, make the first person feel completely alone in the room. This happens in homes everywhere, in every kind of relationship, in every stage of a shared life. It is one of the most common and least spoken about sources of friction between people who love each other. And the beginning of something better is simply knowing this. Knowing that your partner's feelings about money are not irrational or difficult or designed to frustrate you. They are a story. They are history. They are the sound of something learned long ago in a different house with different stakes. You do not need to solve that tonight. You do not need to untangle everything. You only need to let yourself soften just a little in the direction of understanding it. Before two people can talk honestly and openly about the money in their shared life, it helps to spend a moment with the stories they each brought through the door. Not each other's stories, not yet. Your own. Think gently about your earliest memory of money. Not a lesson you were taught. A feeling, a moment. Was there abundance? Was there worry? Was it a parent who argued about bills behind a closed door, or a parent who never spoke about money at all, leaving you to piece it together from what you noticed? Was there a moment when money felt like power, like something that could open doors? Or a moment when the absence of it felt like a particular kind of shame? These memories do not stay memories. They become beliefs. Quiet, unexamined beliefs that settle into the body and shape every financial instinct you carry into adulthood. They become the reflex that makes you check your balance 3 times before any large purchase. They become the ease with which you treat yourself without guilt. They become the discomfort you feel when someone asks how much you earn, or the habit of never asking. Someone who grew up watching a parent spend freely, who lived in a home where money was enjoyed, may have learned that holding on to money too tightly is a form of fear, that joy is worth spending for, that life is for living now. And there is real wisdom in that. There is a generosity and a warmth in that approach to money that the world genuinely needs. Someone who grew up watching a parent struggle or count or quietly sacrifice may have learned that saving is safety, that every small buffer buys a little more peace, that the feeling of a growing account is the feeling of ground beneath your feet. And there is real wisdom in that too. There is steadiness and foresight in that, and it builds the kind of security that lasts. The difficulty comes when these two kinds of wisdom meet in the same kitchen and try to make a decision together. When one person's wisdom looks to the other person like recklessness, when the other person's wisdom looks back like deprivation, neither of them is wrong. They are both doing what they know. They are both, in their own way, trying to feel safe. In a long partnership, you begin to learn each other's financial stories. Not all at once. Slowly, the way you learn any deep thing about someone you love. A little at a time, through small moments of confusion gently explored, through questions asked without judgment, through the willingness to sit with the answer even when it surprises you. There is a question you might ask sometime, not necessarily tonight, but sometime, when both of you are unhurried and open. A simple question asked with genuine curiosity rather than any kind of investigation. What did money mean in your house growing up? How did it feel? What were you told about it? And what were you never told? And then the important part. Just listen, not to respond, not to correct or compare or offer the better version, just to understand, to let the story actually land in you the way a story lands when you are really listening. Because when you understand the story behind someone's financial behavior, the behavior itself changes. It becomes less baffling and more human. Something that felt like carelessness begins to feel like freedom. Something that felt like anxiety begins to feel like care. And conflict, slowly, begins to feel more like translation. Money conversations between people who love each other go wrong. Most often, not because of the topic itself, but because of how the conversation begins. You always spend too much. You never want to enjoy anything. Why did you buy that without asking me? These sentences, even when the feelings behind them are real and entirely understandable, arrive as accusations. And when a person hears an accusation, something in them closes. They do not open up and become vulnerable. They defend. They explain. They pull away slightly, or they push back. And suddenly, a conversation that began about money has become a conversation about what kind of person someone is, and the money itself has been forgotten entirely. There is a gentler way to begin. It starts with the person who wants to raise something, which might be you, pausing before speaking. Not a long pause, just enough to ask yourself, honestly, what am I actually feeling right now? Not what did my partner do wrong? Not what should they have done differently? But what am I feeling and what do I need? I felt worried when I looked at the account this week. I think I need us to sit down and go through things together. I felt a little left out when that happened without me knowing. I think I need us to have some kind of agreement about bigger purchases. These sentences are different. They describe a state rather than an accusation. They ask for something rather than assigning blame. They invite a response rather than demanding a defense. This is not a magic solution. It does not guarantee that every difficult conversation becomes easy. Two people with different histories and different fears will still sometimes find this hard. But changing how you begin changes the shape of the whole conversation. It makes the room slightly safer to be honest in. And in money conversations, honesty is almost everything. There is something else that helps, and it is very simple. Choosing the right moment. A money conversation that begins when someone just walked through the door, or when the children are loud and the day has been long, or when one of you is already stretched thin and has nothing left. That conversation is unlikely to go well. Not because either of you is bad at this, simply because neither of you has the resources to listen well or to speak carefully. The better moment is when you are both fed and rested, when the house is quiet, when there is no crisis pressing, no urgency in the air, when you can sit side by side rather than across from each other, both of you looking at the same problem from the same side of the table. That small thing, sitting beside rather than across, changes something in the body. It is harder to feel like opponents when you are shoulder to shoulder. You are not opponents, even when the conversation is hard, even when you want different things. You are two people who have chosen each other, trying to find a way forward that feels right for both of you. That is worth remembering. It is worth keeping close. Here is a question that seems so simple, it sounds almost unnecessary, but which most couples have never actually asked each other plainly, in a calm and open way. What do we want our life to look like? Not the optimal investment portfolio, not the perfect budget category breakdown, something quieter and more fundamental than any of that. What do we want our mornings to feel like? What does a good year look like for both of us? What would it mean if we were sitting here in 5 years to feel like we had done well. These are financial questions. They do not sound like financial questions, but they are. Because every money decision a couple makes is either pointing towards something, or it is pointing in no particular direction at all. And when you are pointing in no particular direction, it is very hard to feel like you are making progress, no matter how carefully you manage the numbers. When two people do not share an answer to that question, their money decisions will feel misaligned, even when each individual decision is perfectly reasonable on its own. One person is quietly saving for something. The other person is quietly spending towards something else. And neither of them has said it out loud, so neither of them realizes they are pulling in different directions. A shared financial life begins, really, with a shared picture of what you are building toward. Maybe it is a home, a particular feeling of rootedness, of permanence, of a place that is fully yours. Maybe it is time, the ability to slow down, to step off the relentless pace of things, to have mornings that feel unhurried and weeks that feel spacious. Maybe it is security, a number in an account that means whatever happens, whatever unexpected thing arrives, we are not starting from nothing. We have ground beneath us. Maybe it is travel and the richness of having been to places together, of sharing the particular closeness that comes from navigating an unfamiliar city side by side. Maybe it is children and giving them an experience of money that feels different from the one you had. Less anxious, more generous, more rooted in safety. Maybe it is generosity, the ability to help people you love, to give to things that matter, to participate in the world in ways that cost something. Whatever it is for you, and it will be different for every couple. Naming it changes everything. When you both say out loud what you are building toward, you stop being two individuals with separate financial habits living in proximity. You become two people with a shared direction. And that changes the texture of every conversation about money that follows. When one of you suggests a smaller vacation this year, it is no longer frugality for its own sake. It is a step toward the thing you both said you wanted. When one of you suggests spending on something meaningful, something that costs more than seems strictly necessary, it is no longer recklessness. It is an investment in the life you both said you were building. Let yourself picture that softly, if you like. Not numbers or timelines, just the feeling of it. What does the life you want together feel like from the inside? What does a Tuesday feel like in the version of your life that is going well? Hold that feeling gently. You do not need to do anything with it tonight. Once you have a rough sense of where you are going, the next step is finding a system that makes getting there easier. Not a rigid set of rules, not a punishment or a spreadsheet you dread opening. Something more like a garden bed, something you set up with care so that things can grow without requiring your constant attention. For most couples, a useful shared financial system answers just a few basic questions. What money comes in? What goes out? What are we putting aside? And who is responsible for what? You do not need to be identical in your approach to money for a shared system to work. You do not need to agree on everything. You need enough structure that both people feel informed, both people feel safe, and the most important things are handled consistently without anyone having to remember to handle them. Some couples find real ease in combining everything. One account, one view, one shared picture of the whole financial life. There is something clean and unified about that. It can build a feeling of deep togetherness, of genuine partnership in the material world. Others find that some separation is essential, that having money that is entirely their own, that no one else looks at or comments on, is what makes them feel like a whole person rather than half of an administrative unit. That is equally valid. Many find something in the middle, which we will come to in just a moment. The most important thing about a shared financial system is not whether it is the theoretically optimal system. It is whether it is one that you will both actually use consistently without resentment. A simple system that two people actually maintain is worth more than a sophisticated system that one person maintains alone while the other quietly disengages, or that both people abandon after a few weeks because it feels like a chore. Start with what both of you can agree to, what feels fair, what feels manageable, what both of you can hold without feeling like you are losing something. And know that you can always adjust. The system you need in your first year together will not be the system you need a decade later. Income changes, goals evolve, children arrive, jobs shift. A good financial system is not a finished thing. It is a living thing, something you tend and revise and make yours over time. There is one particular arrangement that many couples find both practical and deeply respectful. It goes by a simple name: mine, yours, and ours. The idea has three parts, as the name suggests: a shared account for shared things, a personal account for each individual. The shared account is where the life you are building together lives. The home, whether that is rent or a mortgage, groceries, utilities, shared savings toward the goals you have both named, holidays you take together, expenses that belong to the household rather than to any one person. The personal accounts hold whatever each of you decides to keep separate: your own spending money, a hobby you love, a gift for your partner bought privately without them seeing the amount, perhaps savings towards something that is personally meaningful to you, or simply the daily small pleasures: the coffee you buy without a thought, the book you order without discussion, the thing that makes your week. The amounts in the personal accounts can be equal, even if your incomes are quite different, or they can be proportional to what each person earns. The arrangement can take many forms. What matters is not the specific number. What matters is that each person has a portion of money that is entirely their own, used without explanation, without negotiation, without the need to justify it to anyone. That small freedom, modest in practical terms, can prevent an enormous amount of accumulated resentment over years. Because one of the most common and least discussed sources of tension in long-term partnerships is not the big financial disagreements. It is the slow, grinding discomfort of feeling like you need to justify small choices. The tight feeling of asking permission to spend money on something that matters to you. The mild but persistent experience of not quite having full autonomy over your own everyday life. The mine, yours, ours arrangement is built to dissolve that. The person who grew up in a home where spending was free and joyful can spend freely from their own account without pulling their partner's anxiety into every purchase. The person who grew up needing to feel the safety of a growing balance can tend their own account carefully without having to manage what their partner is doing with theirs. And the shared account holds what you have both agreed to hold together, tended equally, pointed toward the life you both said you were building. This is not the only way to arrange shared finances. Couples find all kinds of approaches that suit them, but this one earns its place because it balances togetherness with autonomy. It honors both the partnership and the individual. And for many couples, it makes the day-to-day texture of sharing a financial life feel much more comfortable. There is a practice that sounds, when you first hear it, slightly odd, but which becomes, for many couples who try it, something they genuinely look forward to. It is called a money date. Once a month, or once every few weeks, you and your partner sit down together, not urgently, not to address a problem, but simply to look at your shared financial life, to see where you are, to make sure you are both informed, to notice anything that needs attention before it becomes a crisis. You might make tea. You might sit somewhere comfortable rather than at a desk. You might spend 20 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour if there is something significant to talk through. You look at what came in during the past few weeks, what went out, whether you are more or less on track toward the things you named. You look ahead at anything coming up that might be worth planning for. The money date is not a performance review. It is not an accounting. It is simply a regular, unhurried habit of shared awareness. And the reason it works is almost not about the finance at all. It is about the relationship to the finance. When couples only talk about money when something has gone wrong, money becomes associated in both of their nervous systems with difficulty, with tension, with the specific discomfort of being caught off guard or of catching someone else off guard. That association, reinforced over time, makes every money conversation slightly harder to begin. There is more at stake, more defensiveness ready at the door. But when you make it a regular and gentle and ordinary thing, the association changes. Money becomes one more part of the life you tend together, like a meal you make side by side on a weekend afternoon, or a walk you take when the day is ending. Something shared, something not charged. The conversations get easier over time because there are no surprises to manage, because neither person is arriving at the conversation already on the defensive, because you are both informed, both present, both looking at the same picture. You do not need to make important decisions every time you sit down. Some of the best money dates are the ones where you look at everything. Notice that things are moving along more or less as you hoped, and feel a quiet, shared satisfaction. That is enough. That is genuinely enough. The regularity is what matters most. The message it sends to both of you and to the partnership itself is this: we take this seriously together. We do not let it become invisible until it becomes a problem. We tend this the same way we tend the other things that matter. There is something worth saying plainly, even in a gentle conversation like this one. Not every money conversation between two people who love each other will be peaceful. Some of them will be genuinely difficult. There will be real disagreements, moments where you want very different things, moments where a decision was made that felt like a small betrayal, or a moment where the stakes feel suddenly much higher than either of you expected. These moments do not mean the relationship is failing. They mean you are two real people, each carrying something, each wanting something, each shaped by a different history, sharing a life, and trying to navigate it with honesty and care. That is hard. Anyone who tells you otherwise is not being straight with you. What helps in those harder moments is not solving everything immediately. What helps is a pause, a breath, the willingness to say out loud to the person you love, I can feel this is important to me, and I want to talk about it in a way that goes well for both of us. And I think I need a little time before I am ready to do that. Saying that is not retreating. It is not avoiding. It is an act of care for the conversation and for the other person. Returning to a difficult subject when both people are calmer is more likely to produce understanding than pushing through a conversation while both people are heated and have nothing left to give. What also helps is returning, when things are hard, to the shared picture you have built together. The things you both said you wanted. When the disagreement is about a specific decision, lifting your eyes to the shared goal sometimes changes the size of it. Sometimes you find that you want the same thing, and the disagreement is only about the path. Sometimes that is enough to find the way through. And sometimes you do genuinely want different things. That is real, and it deserves more than a formula. It deserves patience and honesty and the willingness to keep listening even when it is uncomfortable. A couple who has learned to move through the difficult money conversations with care, who has built the trust that they will come back to each other, that they will keep the conversation alive even when it is hard. That couple has built something quietly remarkable. Not just a functional financial system, something more like a shared practice of repair, of returning, of choosing each other again after the difficult moment has passed. Here is something that is easy to lose in the middle of any particular month or any particular disagreement or any week when the numbers feel tighter than you would like. financial life of a couple is not a single moment. It is a long, slow story. And within a long story, the weight of any single chapter is much smaller than it feels while you are living through it. The habits you build together now, the ways of talking you practice, the small, consistent savings, the regular check-ins, the willingness to keep the conversation honest. These are not just practical things. They are the chapters of something that unfolds over decades. And what a long financial story looks like is shaped far more by what you do consistently over years than by what you do perfectly in any given month. A little saved every month without fanfare, without urgency, over a very long time, becomes something that neither of you could have built alone. The math of it is almost magical. The way small things become large things when they are given enough time and left alone. You do not need to be aggressive about it. You do not need to be clever. You need to be patient and consistent and to not undo it. A little honesty practiced regularly between two people becomes trust. Not the trust that nothing will ever go wrong, but the trust that if something goes wrong, you will find out about it, and you will face it together, and you will be okay. That kind of trust does not come from grand gestures. It comes from small, repeated moments of telling the truth about small things, even when it is slightly uncomfortable to do so. And a little shared intention, held between two people over years, becomes a life that both people actually recognize as theirs. A life that feels like it was built rather than fallen into. That sense of authorship, of having made something together, is its own kind of wealth. One that does not show up in any account statement, but that you feel every day. The one expensive week does not define the year. The 1 month of less saving does not define the decade. The one argument about money does not define the relationship. What defines the arc is the direction you keep returning to, the values you keep honoring, the conversations you keep having, even when they are imperfect, even when they require a second try. You are not building this all at once. You are building it slowly across a shared life in 1,000 small moments. And that is exactly how it should be done. You have spent this evening thinking about something real, something that lives close to the center of a shared life. That is worth acknowledging softly before you sleep. Money and love are tangled together in ways that most of us were never taught to see clearly. The worries we carry from before we met our partners, the stories we learned in different houses, the different feelings of safety and freedom that each of us is reaching for. All of it finds its way into the way we talk about money, the way we react when the numbers surprise us, the way we reach for closeness or distance when things feel uncertain. And seeing that, even just a little, even just in the soft and unfocused way that a bedtime lecture allows, is the beginning of something better. Not a solved problem, simply a gentler way of holding it. You do not have to change everything. You do not have to be perfect at this. No couple is. The best you can do, and it is genuinely enough, is to be willing. Willing to talk, even when it is a little uncomfortable. Willing to listen, even when what you hear surprises you. Willing to let your partner be a person with their own history, and to let yourself be a person with yours. Willing to return to each other again and again, with the conversation still open. That willingness is the foundation of all of it. The systems, the shared accounts, the goals you name together, the regular gentle check-ins, all of it rests on that willingness. And willingness is not a skill you have to learn or a habit you have to build over months. It is a choice, a quiet, renewable choice, available to you at any moment, including tomorrow morning, including the next time money comes up between you. Let that settle now. Let your breath slow. The day is done, and it has asked enough of you. Whatever tomorrow holds, it can wait until morning. You are resting now, and the things you are building quietly across all the days and the conversations and the small, honest moments, they are still becoming what they are meant to become. Slowly, steadily, without any hurry at all. Sleep well